So, good afternoon and welcome to the overview video for Unit 2, Maintenance of the Human Body. You'll notice right up here at the top that I recommend about 7 school days for this. By January the 19th, you should be finished with all of the requirements. I will state right off the bat that there are several differences between Unit 1 and Unit 2. Um, Although we do cover 6 full chapters in this this unit, they are not sequential. All right, we will be doing chapters 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to skip 8 and do 9, 10, and 11. All right. Chapter 8 is about some very specific diseases, and we're not going to cover them in class because one of you may choose to do that as your disease or condition term paper. Now, with that said, I want you to immediately look at requirement number 5 for this unit, which is to choose a disease or a condition and email me the topic by January the 11th. All right, so that's the due date for this. Now, if you have several options that you would like to cover or like to talk about, you can send me a list of 2 or 3. And that way, if somebody has already chosen your first choice, I can assign you the second choice or whatever it happens to be. But by January the 11th, please make sure that you have emailed me with your choice of a disease or a condition to write your term paper on. Now, in addition to that, there are also 3 different lab exercises for this particular unit. The labs themselves are paper labs. They are things that you can do all by yourself. The first one is requirement number 9, the cardiovascular system. And that one looks like this. Now, what I'd like you to do is, for this one, is to read through the first couple of pages of information that are here. A lot of this will just be review or an extension of the things that we've talked about in chapters 5 and 6. But then there are several exercises that I would like you to complete. The first one is exercise 6.1, the characteristics of a normal blood smear. Here, you need to label this diagram. All right, you can see the instructions are written down here, and then answer these questions. Now, I've tried to put this in as a Canvas quiz, but in scanning the documents, they are very, very blurry, and I'm afraid that they'll be very difficult to read on a laptop or a phone. So what I'd like you to do for this is to print it out. This is a 12-page lab. Print it out, complete it, and then send me images of at least of the pages that have questions and labels and things like that on them. And again, this will be due on January the 19th, which is the last day for Unit 2. All right, so anyway, the first thing for the cardiovascular system lab is exercise 6.1. A little bit more information. Exercise 6.3. Here, I'm going to ask you to label a photograph of a model of the heart. The things that you need to label are shown down here at the bottom of this page. Label it, take a picture, and send it off to me. And then there are a couple of questions for exercise 6.3 that you can answer right here on these lines. And here as well. These are the valves, the heart valves here, and you can label those or answer those questions that are shown there. Now, step 6.4, listening to your heartbeat, just read through that, gives you some basic information. But exercise 6.5, I would like you to do, and this is determining your own pulse rate. Essentially, what I'm going to ask you to do is find your radial pulse and you can find that by looking at your arm. All right, I'm trying to get in front of the camera here, but right up here on the top of your arm, you can see here's the thumb. All right, this is the radius, the bone. And if you find the radial bone and then just go just a wee bit underneath it with two fingers, you should be able to find your pulse. Okay. So measure your heart rate for a 30-second period and then multiply it by 2 in order to get your resting heart rate. Um, you can skip question number 4 because we're not going to do cardiac auscultation. That's listening to the heart with a stethoscope. I don't expect that most of you will have a stethoscope at home, so we can skip that. But then what I would like you to do is do a moderate exercise, jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, whatever it happens to be. Don't kill yourself here, but for about 3 minutes, and then measure your heart rate again and record it here. Okay. And then answer this question that's shown below. A little bit of reading about blood vessels, and then exercise 6.6. Tracing the blood flow through the cardiovascular system. Notice that there are 5 lines here and 5 blood vessels. Please write them down in order. And then finally, the last exercise here, another list of terms, blood vessel, or actually heart valves and heart chambers, and list them in the appropriate spaces here. And that will be the cardiovascular system lab. Now, the second lab is requirement number 16, the energy requirements lab. This one is a little bit longer, a little bit more information here, but honestly, I would actually start this one as soon as you can, even before you read the digestive system and that sort of thing. All right. The first page or so is just an introduction to the lab. The first thing that I'd like you to do is exercise 9.1, which is to keep a food diary. All right. And what I'd like you to do is write down everything that you eat or drink for a 24-hour period. And I'd like you to do this for 3 days. It would be best if it was 2 weekdays and a weekend, but I know that this is a weird time frame, so do whatever it is that is easiest for you. So what you're going to do is write down the type of food, the portion size, and the number of calories or kilocalories in a slice here. Or for the piece of bread, but number of kilocalories in the amount of food that you eat and the total there. And you're going to add up the total kilocalorie intake for each day for the 3 days, 1, 2, and 3, add it all up, and then divide by 3 to get your average energy intake per day. Now, there is a list of some different foods here, but quite frankly, the easiest thing to do is just Google it. How many calories are there in a hard-boiled egg? How many calories are there in a slice of toast? How many calories are there in a bowl of Fruit Loops? You should be able to find that information fairly easily using the interweb. Now, section 9.2 is all about the daily energy requirement. Here, what you're going to do is keep a physical activity diary for 3 days. All right. You're going to make 3 copies of the table on the next page here: time of day, activity, how much time you spend, the factor, which we'll talk about in a minute, your weight, and the total energy expended. So you need to fill in the table. The first thing you have to do, though, is go to the next page, and you're going to draw a straight line using a ruler from your height in inches to your weight in pounds, and that's going to pass through this thing. All right. You got to know how tall you are and how much you weigh. And so the weight is going to go here. In order to calculate the amount of energy that you use, you're going to multiply the time spent doing each activity times the energy cost times your body weight, and that'll give you the total energy expended. Now, how do you find the energy cost, you ask? Well, that is found in table 9.3. So if you're doing something that's very minimal, sitting or standing still, the energy cost is 0.010 kilocalories per kilogram per minute. If you're doing light activity like driving a car or slowly walking, it's 0.02. Light exercise, moderate exercise, you can follow along on table 9.3. All right. So that's going to give you then 3 days worth of physical activity. You're going to add them all up and divide by 3, and that'll give you the average energy required for physical activity per day. Now, don't just throw in an hour or two. All right. Your time requirements on this table 9.2 should add up to 24 hours. All right. Even if you're sleeping for 8 hours, sleeping is an activity. All right. Obviously, it would be a very minimal activity, but it's still an activity. So you should account for all day long, okay, on each of the 3 days. All right. Now, the next thing you have to do is calculate your basal metabolic rate. And you can follow the instructions here. And on the bottom of this page, you'll need your body surface area, which you can calculate using this. All right, it's essentially, if you draw a straight line through here, wherever it crosses scale 2, that's your body surface area. And then consult the tables in order to figure out what your daily basal metabolic rate actually is. Finally, the last energy expenditure you'll have is called SDA. And specific dynamic action is the amount of energy that you use to process your food. And so what you'll do is you're going to add up your energy requirement for a day plus your BMR, and then you're going to multiply that by 10%. All right, and that'll give you your SDA, and you'll write your SDA down in here. Then re-record your average physical activity, your BMR, and your average SDA. And if you add those 3 numbers up, that'll give you the average energy that you use in a given day. Section 9.3 is just a comparison of your average daily energy intake and your average daily energy requirement. Just answer the questions that are shown here. Section 9.4 talks about your ideal weight, which is your given your height and your frame, and then your body mass index, your BMI. Just follow the instructions on these pages and then answer the questions on the bottom of page 111 here. And then finally, the last page is just some quick review questions, 1 through 18, and that, my friends, will be that. Okay. Now, the last lab is all about the respiratory system. Here, there are 3 pages of introductory material, which you can see as I'm passing through. And then there are 10 review questions for the lab. Number 1 is just to label this diagram. Number 2 is a multiple choice question. And then the last set of questions are 3 through 6 are shown on page 5, and 7 through 10 are shown on page 6. All right, so that will be that. Okay, now that is essentially the end. Requirement number 24 is the test, which has to be completed by midnight on January 19th. It is essentially the same format as the quiz. The only difference here is that it will be longer. All right, there'll be 20 multiple choice questions and 8 long answer questions, and you'll have 60 minutes to complete this. So again, keep track of your time. The final requirement for Unit 2 is number 25, which is to send in your outline for your disease condition project. This should be a bullet point format, not a rough draft of your paper. please make sure that you include the major details that show me that you've gotten some information. Don't send me an outline that doesn't tell me anything about your disease. It has to be specific to your disease so that I know that you're on the right track. All right? And that, by the way, will be due at midnight on January the 20th. Okay. So that, my friends, is the end of the overview for Unit 2. Again, it should take about 7 days or so, and I hope that was helpful.